Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Canon Unscripted. I'm your host, Mason Higa, and I appreciate you all tuning in. This is our show by Canon USA, and it's an opportunity for us to sit down with some of our favorite photographers, filmmakers, and creatives to talk about what makes them click and how they've pursued their passions, which evolved into their careers. And of course, since this is a Canon show, we talk about the Canon gear that they use to bring their vision to life. To find out more about all of their products, please go to usa.canon.com/unscripted and subscribe to our socials to keep up with the latest and greatest. On today's show, we have Canon Explorers of Light, Larry Chen. We peel back the layers of Larry's dynamic career, exploring the heart-pounding moments, adrenaline-fueled shoots, and behind-the-scenes stories that have defined his trajectory. With a passion for speed and an eye for detail, Larry has captured the essence of automotive culture, from high-octane drifting events to classic car rallies and everything in between. Whether you're a gearhead, photography enthusiast, or simply appreciate the beauty of fast cars and stunning imagery, this is your passport to the pulse-pounding world of Larry Chen's photography. I had an incredible time during our conversation and thankful for Larry coming on to the show. Without further ado, here's my unscripted talk with Larry Chen.
Me and my team, we work so hard day in and day out to do stuff on the editorial side. And we also do so much on the commercial side where I just travel the world doing exactly that. They don't even know where I'm going. They don't even know what's going to show up.
Welcome, Larry Chen.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. For the big fan base that watches your content, that looks at everything that you do, you are probably one of the hardest working photographers out there. You're everywhere. How did, is there like three of you? Like, what's going on?
You have to. The thing that I always like to promote is that you can't take pictures of cars from your couch. You just can't. You have to go to where the good action is. You have to find the cars, find the builders, go to the races, check out the car meets. You have to actually physically be there. And a lot of individuals reach out to me and they ask me, what's the first step? Like, what's the secret? I tell them, you just have to go find the cars. If you truly love it and if it's truly your passion, then go search out for them.
Yeah, you can't shoot from your couch, right? Absolutely. So, Larry, give us a little backstory about, how you got started, who are you, and, again, why this passion for automotive?
I've been shooting cars and car culture for 20 years now. I started in 2004. My first DSLR was a Canon Rebel XT. And I've been shooting Canon ever since then. It's something that I just love to do so much. It's my life. I love driving them. I love building them. I love telling stories of these vehicles and the people behind them. I've been very fortunate enough to figure out some way for this to be my career. It sounds like a job that shouldn't exist. Traveling the world, taking pictures, and telling stories of cars and car culture. For whatever reason right now, it's more prevalent than ever. It's something that you can't even hold back. No matter where I travel to, whether it be in Europe, Asia, Australia, wherever, Southeast Asia, it doesn't matter where I go. It seems like it's something that has become mainstream culture. And it's transportation. It's simple when you say it that way, but it's so much deeper than that. It's emotional. These things are beautiful. They have a soul. And for whatever reason, it worked out.
Well, I'm glad it worked out. I'm sure you're probably glad it's worked out too, because like you said, like people can stand back and look at it from their own perspective, but you really do have like this dream job, right? Like that you just get to embrace.
It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
I endure quite a bit of long hours, physical suffering, especially when we have to hike crazy distances and stay out there in the field in whatever weather condition. It's not easy, but we just love it. Me and my team, we work so hard day in and day out to do stuff on the editorial side, and we also do so much on the commercial side. We work with a lot of manufacturers like Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Ford, Chevy. So many manufacturers come to us to tell the story about their vehicle. But on top of that, we're doing so much on the editorial side, whether it be magazines, YouTube videos, our YouTube channel. We do a lot of stuff for Haggerty. We have a show on Haggerty called Capturing Car Culture, where I just travel the world doing exactly that. They don't even know where I'm going. They don't even know what's going to show up. But because I've been shooting for 20 years, I've made so many contacts. I've made so many friends all over the world where I can just reach out and ask these individuals, hey, what's coming up next? What are you building? What's the hot scoop? You know, what's the exclusive build? Does it have 2 engines? Does it have 3 engines or whatever? You know, what are you doing that's exciting that you want to share with the world? And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, you're a documentarist, you're as well too, like you're a storyteller. I mean, there's so many facets, right? You know, like, and you are so keen on the details as well too, because again, car culture is big picture, but also so much of it is encompassing those details, right?
Yeah, that's one thing I really like to talk about when I'm teaching car photography. So even just this past weekend, we were in Hawaii. We were on Oahu, and I was doing a speaking session at PhotoCon Hawaii, and I also did a live shooting session and more like a shoot along with me session where we invited 30 of the local builds that are from around the island, cars that were built in Hawaii, and Hawaiian owners. They brought their cars over, and I just talked about like a general overview of how to photograph these cars, but I also talked about what makes them interesting. The details, the textures, the patina, you know, just the way it looks, the color. There's just so many things interesting about these cars that make them their own, especially Hawaiian builds. There's something to be said about keeping a car alive that is pretty much being eaten away by the salt water, you know, the salty air. There's just a lot of ingenuity that goes behind making these vehicles special. That's why we've been shooting in Hawaii for so many years, because of the fact that the style is just different from mainland U.S. And I find that interesting wherever I go, any country that I go to, there's always something from the local flavor that gets used when it comes to like a final product, when it comes to the actual car build.
I mean, it's kind of like I remember watching your content in Hong Kong, right? You know, the difficulty of maintaining as well as having access to even a car there.
We recently spent quite a bit of time in Hong Kong telling the story and telling the challenges that these individuals have to endure just to play with these cars.
Yeah.
I understand that a lot of people are complaining, saying, oh, well, there's not much space in Hong Kong and this, that, and the other. Well, the problem that I see is that they're peaceful gatherings. They just enjoy these machines. And honestly, most of these people can afford them. Or I would say the majority of them can afford them and then some. But the problem is they're not even able to just enjoy them casually. Even just being out on the street with these vehicles, they get harassed by the police for no good reason. But I mean, that's just something that they have to deal with.
Yeah.
A lot of people, especially in California or anywhere in the U.S., they like to complain about harassment from authorities when it comes to car culture. But honestly, they have no idea how good they have it.
Sure. Grass is greener, right?
Yeah, the grass is always greener.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is you look at a place like Hong Kong, and they even have it better than a lot of other places.
Sure. Yeah.
Because some places you can't get a car at all.
Right.
And somehow they still endure. Or you can't even import a car, and you have to smuggle cars in.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting just to be able to see all of that firsthand.
Where's been the most challenging place then, I guess? What would you say? You know, again, I think challenging could be also a good thing as well too, because I remember like even just personally, I followed like, you know, cars in Cuba, right? You know, and like some of how what they do over there as well too. So I mean, challenge is also a good thing, I think.
Yeah, I've been very lucky to be able to shoot in Cuba before we're not allowed to go anymore. And I had a chance to see it firsthand there too. These vehicles that are pretty much stuck in time.
Yeah.
Now all of these classic vehicles from the 50s, all of them are swapped with Toyota diesel engines to keep them alive. But yeah, it is pretty incredible to see what people are able to do with them. In terms of challenging shooting wise for us, when we're shooting endurance racing, 24-hour races where the vehicles are racing for 24 hours straight, that's very difficult because of the amount of time that we have to put into photographing and telling the story about these races. Because it's not just 24 hours. We have to get up way earlier before the race even starts, you know, get the drivers suiting up, get them ready, get the teams getting ready, and then the clock starts. Then we have a whole day cycle where we go through sunset, then we shoot at the night, you know, at night when everybody's tired and everybody's falling asleep, and then we shoot sunrise. So it's like a whole day cycle of these cars just getting beaten and battered. That's very difficult for us.
Are you up the whole time?
We try.
Yeah.
We try. Sometimes I'll sleep under my desk, under my laptop after I'm done editing for like an hour or a change.
Right.
And the conditions are always tough, whether it be raining or hot or whatever. We shoot the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb every single year, and I think that's probably the most physically demanding race that we have to shoot, which is 14,115 feet. That's in Colorado. I think it's the highest race track out of the year or in the world, and it is a hill climb. So you start at about 9,000 feet and you end up at 14,115 feet. And there's no way to get from one place to the other. You just have to hike. So we're doing a lot of hiking, and it's in the middle of summer. And even though it's in the middle of summer, it snows, it hails. There's sleet up there. It is insane. I mean, we're shooting in really, really tough conditions. Sometimes I've even seen in the middle of summer, like 15 degrees in the morning with the wind chill. We're just suffering, waiting for these cars to come by.
Yeah.
And in the end of the day, it's worth it because the photos of these vehicles above the clouds, well above the clouds as a backdrop is just incredible.
Yeah, we've seen those images come through, and I'm just always like amazed by what you guys are able to capture out there.
Yeah, we put our gear through the ringer too.
Yeah.
I mean, you've helped me with my gear so many times. I mean, we push this stuff. The joke for me is like, we're not shooting in a studio where it's clean.
Yeah.
We're shooting in the most terrible conditions, you know, sandstorms, windstorms. The cameras get soaked to the point where I've legitimately poured water out of the lenses.
Wow.
And then we have to let them sit in the sun for a couple days, and then we just put them back on the camera and they work again.
That's a testament.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we're not
Yeah.
shy about being tough on our gear. And if anybody follows my any of my work, they see that we tape up everything, the entire lens, the body, just because they're clanking on things, they're clanking on each other. We're flying with them, and we're not easy on them at all, and it kind of just shows that they're able to handle it, which is great. You know, they're able to survive my wrath. You mentioned before we started rolling the shutter count thing. I guess it doesn't really matter anymore with mirrorless cameras.
Right.
But before, we used to put so many actuations on our cameras. I still have a 1DX body with 1.3 million actuations. And I'm really proud of the fact, because you can go in the menus and show how many actuations this body has.
That's the camera.
Yeah, that's the camera. I had two of them. So when the 1DX, original 1DX came out, I bought two right away because it was such a game changer for me. And those were just my, one on each shoulder. And we would just shoot with them every single day. And then we still shot with them all the way up until pretty much, I would say, right when the R3 came out, because I would use them as remote cameras. They were kill cameras. We could just mount them on the side of a racetrack, and if it got hit, it got hit. I would be sad because it's such a historic camera for me. I mean, so much of the magnesium is showing because of how much wear that I put on it, with my fingers and dragging it on the floor or mounting it against a fence. And they've seen better days, but the point is, it's still clicking and still working, and we love using all of that old gear. I don't really sell any of my lenses. I still have my first L lens.
Do you really?
Yeah. So I bought 17-40 off Craigslist all those years ago. First ever L lens, when I bought a 1D Mark IIN, and then I needed a lens for it. So went on Craigslist, bought it for $450, I remember, from this guy. And it's gone through so many check-in cleans. The screws all have been tightened over the years. And, it's still something that we use to this day as a remote camera lens.
Yeah.
Because, the lenses, this is going to sound so dumb, but the lenses never stop lensing. They're always lensing, Even if it's in your bag with a lens cap on, it's still lensing. The glass is just glass. It just, unless it's completely destroyed or you smash it on the ground or it gets fogged up from mold, it's always going to do what it needs to do, which is be a lens and do its best to capture that image.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I know. Yeah. For those of you that don't know, Larry was one of the first people to cross over the 1 million mark with the 1DX. And it's funny, when I first met Larry, he came in for service and he's like, "Hey, I need my gear worked on, but do not touch the shutter."
Yeah.
Because again, he was trying to hit that mark, and it just goes to show like how well, you put everything through its paces.
It's funny because I kind of got that nickname pretty early on when I started doing a lot of content, Machine Gun Larry, because what I would do is I would mount a camera on top of my 1DX or 1DX Mark II or whatever it was, and it made like this crazy sound, because it was vibrating the camera on top, and it just sounded like a machine gun. I was just firing away, but I would acquire the target, and I was just, and a lot of people didn't understand. They're like, "Oh, you're so wasteful. You're shooting so much." But what people don't understand is there's so much happening all the time. A tire could blow off, it could crash, or it could jump on three wheels, or it could flip over. If I hesitate for even just a millisecond, I miss the shot.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing is, a lot of times when I'm shooting action, I'm essentially shooting the photo after the fact, or shoot first, ask questions later. If I shoot the whole sequence and nothing happens, what is it to me? What does it matter? If I shoot the whole sequence and something does happen, a wheel comes off, or there isn't some sort of incident or a huge fireball, then after the fact, I can choose the perfect photo and the perfect frame out of that whole sequence. And I understand that it's a different method of shooting. It's essentially spray and pray. But that's what you just have to do to get these images. I don't care who you are. If you have that kind of reaction time to something like that fast happening, you're just not, you're going to miss it.
Gonna miss it.
You know, because of how fast things happen in racing.
Yeah. I mean, it's milliseconds, just like you said, like even if it was a sports, right? You know, somebody crossing the finish line. I mean, that's the reason why they take photos at the finish line, right? I mean, so, you know, just to document and such. And so, yeah, having the gear to capture it is pretty important. You know, I mean, you know, well, hey, we're already here, you know, and this is a Canon podcast. Let's talk about gear for a second. You know, what are you using?
A lot of people ask me what kind of gear I use, or they're like, hey, what kind of camera do you use?
Yeah.
We're really lucky in that we work with Canon, so I can pretty much use whatever gear I want. But we will seriously shoot from 8mm all the way to 600mm and anything in between.
Yeah.
But of course, I have my preferences. Right now, we're shooting a lot with the R3, and I'm shooting a lot with the R5 as well when we need those megapixels. But also, day in and day out, I shoot with the R8. I love the R8 so much because it is a full frame camera, and it's something that pretty much fits in my pocket or fits in my bag. And it's something that I can carry with me all the time, especially when I'm vlogging. And it shoots 4K. We mostly shoot video on it. And the hack for me is using the fixed 16mm 2.8 RF lens, which is super lightweight, very, very lightweight. That along with the R8, and I put it on a little tripod handle. I can just stick it in my belt. I can put it in my bag anytime, and it's almost like I don't have a camera with me.
Yeah.
But the stabilization on it is second to none. It's almost like having a gimbal without having a gimbal. It's so good. So we use that for vlogging. And sometimes I use the R5 for vlogging because it's a little bigger, but the quality is just so good. But yeah, we use everything. You know, we use R5C. We still use, like I said, the 1D series of cameras. Sometimes we use the M6 Mark IIs also for onboard cameras.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, love those. Have a couple of those along with the 10 to 20 millimeter, what is it? EFM? EFM, okay. So, yeah, it's not always about the most expensive gear. It's the right gear for the job.
Yeah.
And people get surprised when I tell them that I shoot with the R8 mostly now in terms of vlogging and my day-to-day stuff. Of course, when it comes to the big guns, when we're shooting racing, I always have 3 R3s on me. And people wonder, well, why do you need 3? Why don't you just have 1 and then change lenses? Again, things are happening so fast, especially because I love shooting on prime lenses. I just can't switch lenses fast enough. By the time I switch the lens, the moment's already over.
Yeah.
You know, so to be able to have a wide, a medium, and a long on you at all times, it's great. It's so useful. I prefer. A lot of people ask me if I had 1 lens, what would I shoot with, or 2. I prefer 35mm and 135mm.
Yeah.
Because cars generally are a little bit of a larger subject. And while 50 is good for your perspective, I need just a little more than that. And 35, right now, the EF14 version 2, so good. Works great with the adapter on the R3 or any of our cameras, mirrorless cameras. And then, of course, we switched over from the 135, which came out in 1998, the EF version, F2. Loved that lens forever. That lens got replaced by the RF 1.8.
1.8, yeah.
Which honestly has become such a game changer for me.
It's so nice,
Just
right?
what people don't understand is the 2 to the 1.8 is such a big jump in terms of being able to separate your subject from the background. It's 100% totally worth it. And on top of that, the old lens, the EF, didn't have IS. And it was just on the verge of being a little more difficult to hold handheld. The thing that the 135 EF had going for it was that it's super cheap and also that it's super lightweight and very small. But the RF version, geez, the image stabilization is just so good. It's scary how good it is. I mean, I could be freezing and shaking, and I'm like physically, shaking the camera, and then I look in the viewfinder or I look in the back of the screen, and it's a completely still image.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I remember once too, you even said, hey, I need a lens that's going to be really good because I'm going to be in a helicopter overhead.
Yes.
And so it's like, we have to test this stuff out. I mean, you really do put it all through.
Yeah, we've been very, very fortunate to launch 4 cameras for Canon, and every time we really put them through the ringer.
Yeah.
So I remember for the 1DX Mark III launch, there were only a certain amount of prototype cameras available or pre-production cameras, and we were given 2 bodies for a period of 6 days. And every single day we took it out. I think we took it to 6 different shoots, 6 different shooting locations and 6 different scenarios. We didn't really sleep much that whole week, but I really wanted to push this camera and show everybody that it was so much more different than the Mark II, and it was just so much more capable, and it was just so much better as a camera. The R3, when we launched that, same thing. I pushed this camera. I think it was even more scenarios. I think it was like 8 different scenarios. We took it to Europe. We took it to all of these different kinds of disciplines when it comes to car or automotive photography. We even shot motorcycles because we wanted to show the feature where the subject detection feature, we wanted to show how detailed it is and how deep it goes. It's almost like this feature was made for me. It's so good. It's cheating, actually. And one of the things I always like to talk about when I talk about Canon cameras is because we're always looking for that unfair advantage. We don't want it to be a fair playing field.
Right.
We can't. We're competing against so many people that want the same gigs, want the same jobs as us. We need every single little tiny advantage we can get, whether it be the fact that Canon has a bunch of 1.2 lenses, or whatever, better sensor, low light, or better autofocus. All the smallest things matter.
Yeah.
Right. So like a good example is the 200 EF f2. Right. Love that lens so much, so heavy, but and it's also very expensive compared to a 7200. But just that 0.8 in terms of f-stop, it's worth it. We just go to that great lengths just to have a little bit different, a little more of an advantage. The 200 f2, I think for a while it was probably Canon's sharpest lens too, but it was something where it's just the smallest thing that made so much of a difference, and we always tried to take advantage of that unfair advantage.
Yeah.
And it seems to have worked.
Kind of pans out for you, right?
All of this stuff, it's really stuff that we want to use.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, a lot of people talk about cell phone photography and the fact that cell phones are so good, why would you even need a camera? Well, as fast as cell phone technology is progressing, professional camera imaging technology is progressing just as fast. And the image quality is just unbelievable now.
Right.
It's so good. In fact, what I have to do now, because of a lot of AI tools, AI software from Adobe or other manufacturers have come out, I actually have to go back and fix my mistakes from years ago. Because a lot of situations where things maybe were underexposed because I made a mistake, or the camera technology was just not there yet for what I was doing. It's so nice that I'm able to go back and fix these mistakes, but now you don't even have to worry about it. One of the biggest things that I always like to talk about moving from a mirrored camera to mirrorless is that it's such a big jump, almost as big of a jump as it is from film to digital, for me at least, because one of the main things that I was always struggling with was achieving near perfect focus. Because as much as the 1DX Mark III tried, and it had a lot of focus points, most of them were clumped in the middle. And then so you couldn't frame the photos exactly how you needed to frame them, especially when the subject was moving at a high rate of speed. Because we moved to mirrorless, and it's not trying to achieve focus just from the middle and the viewfinder, it's actually achieving focus through what the entire sensor is seeing.
Right.
You can focus edge to edge, and that is just the biggest cheater thing ever. It's so good. And anytime I see people shooting with DSLRs now, and they ask me if it's worth the switch, I can go on for hours about this. I mean, it's just so much of an advantage. Absolutely. Really. It is crazy. It's changed the game, because also we're not limited to shooting with a viewfinder. Because generally speaking, if you're just limited to your viewfinder and you're limited to the physical space where you're allowed to be, and you can't just keep the camera above your head or down below on the ground, or even if you're shooting like a reflection of a puddle on the ground, it's hard a lot of times to just lay down on the ground and look through the viewfinder. That's just what we had to do. We had to get dirty and put ourselves in this situation before. But now with that live view and the articulating screen on the R3 and the R5 and most of the bodies that we're shooting with now, it is just cheating. It's so good. It's just so much easier to shoot, and you could just shoot so much more in a shorter amount of time, and then you can have a lot more time for post-production too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the autofocus is incredible, right, with the cameras. I mean, it's just, like you said, it's almost cheating, It's such a huge difference as far as technology. I've
stuck with Canon as a brand since the beginning, all the way up until now. But I wasn't a Canon Explorer of Light for the whole time. I only became an Explorer of Light winter of 2019.
Yeah.
And up until that point, I was still very loyal to the brand because of the technology, because I just loved the 1.2 lenses. I even had a 51.
You had one?
Yeah.
Do you still have it?
No.
No.
I'm bummed that I sold it, but I bought one
Yeah.
on eBay for $4,000.
Yeah.
Back then, it was a lot of money, but I just wanted to try it. I just wanted to have just that little bit difference. What's the real difference between a 50 f 1.0 versus a EF 50 1.2? I mean, it is a lot of money, but I just wanted something that much more special.
Something to separate yourself.
Yeah, it just looked that much different. And honestly, it was just such a cool piece to have.
Yeah.
But who else is going to make something like that? It's just so crazy, because how often can you actually take that out of your gear bag and use it to its full potential? I mean, we certainly try to push it. I even tried to shoot F1 in broad daylight with neutral density filters.
Yeah, with NDs.
And that's what we liked. So at the time, I would shoot with the 35 version 1 EF. That's 1.4, and then we have a 50 f1, and then I had a 85 1.2, and it was like the low light monsters for the time.
Yeah.
Talk about ahead of its time.
Yeah. Lenses to me always so important, as far as, because again, lens first, right? That's where the light's coming through.
If you take care of this gear,
Yeah.
a good example is my 17 to 40. Even though we push it hard, I wouldn't say we abuse it, but we push it to its absolute limits. If you take care of it, if you get it serviced properly, then it's gonna last. Honestly, it'll pretty much last forever, because like I said, if you take care of it, if you're in a very humid climate and you put it in a dehumidifier, right? Then it won't fog up, it won't grow mold, and then you can use it pretty much forever.
Yeah. I know I store all my stuff in my like server area and stuff just to keep it dry as well too. So, yeah.
What's fun for me is using these modern lenses on the old cameras.
Yeah.
Right. So like the older Elan cameras or the older film cameras that are still EF mount, I loved using those on the new lenses because first of all, it was never meant to have this kind of lensing, shooting on film. Like for example, like the 400 version 3, 2.8. You have this monster, $12,000 lens, and then you have this tiny film camera on it. It's so cool to be able to use that new technology, new lens technology for this camera. The funny thing is like the IS works and everything works fine, and you're able to capture these images that look old, but the lensing is new. And it's very sharp, way sharper than probably what anything existed around that time when that camera was out.
Yeah, everything is different design, engineered wise, right? For resolution, and vice versa, right? Playing around with the older lenses, the FD lenses on our R series bodies as well too. You can do that.
Yes, that's a good point. That's one of the advantages. I remember a long time ago when I was shooting, I don't know what era. It was probably the 1DX era, where I still had a bunch of the old FD lenses. I had a tilt shift. I had a bunch of these lenses and an AE1. And I did a lot of research in terms of how you can adapt these lenses to the newer bodies. And unfortunately, because of the distance of the sensor to the mount, a lot of times you weren't able to achieve infinity.
Yeah.
So then now with RF, you can pretty much use whatever lens you want. You can make your own lens if you want to. And that's the beauty of it. It's so cool.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's pivot too, like, because we're talking about all the work with the gear and everything too. And you mentioned about your workflow, right? So being out at the events and everything like that. Like, how do you guys process all of these images, and how many images do you like walk away from like per day?
We shoot a lot. Yeah. I average about 350 to 400,000 images a year.
Yeah.
It goes up and down depending on the year. More recently, in the past couple of years, I've more been shooting around 350,000 range. And then a couple of years before that, I was shooting about 500,000 a year. It's just, we're doing a lot more video with the cameras that we have. And I'm able to tell different stories that way. But one of the things I really like to promote when it comes to post-processing with pretty much, I think all of the Canon cameras, you can rate the photos in camera. Even the very consumer cameras, you can go in to the menus and you can rate the photos from 1 star to 5 stars. And that allows you to choose your selects in camera. And we really take advantage of any off time we have, whether we're transiting from one location to the other, if I'm waiting for a car to come around, or if there's some kind of break, or even if we have 5 minutes, or even if it's 30 seconds, I'll go back with the scroll wheel, go back through the photos. If it's broad daylight in the sunlight, I'll look through the eyepiece, and then you can see the images. If they're tack sharp, or if it's something that I need to take a second look at, then that's when I will select the images that I want to import later or that I want to use for final delivery. We don't delete any of the shots that we take because in the field, there's a potential to make a mistake, or let's say you need some other image that wasn't important at the time. That happens all the time. Let's say it's a vehicle that we happen to shoot throughout the day or throughout the weekend, but then that individual didn't want the pictures until they won the race. Right? So that happens all the time. So we never delete any of our stuff, but we always do our best to deliver our stuff as fast as possible and on time. And it starts from right when you created the image.
It's pretty cool that you mentioned the rate button as well, because that is, I believe, that rate function then and the flagging of it, or we'll say the rating of it, that's embedded in the XML file as well.
Yeah.
Right?
So that lives with that that file once you take it off of the camera, and then no matter where you put it, whatever software you're using, Capture One or Lightroom, when you import it into Lightroom, it's embedded in that file.
Right.
And what I do personally with the R3 and R5 is I get rid of all the other stars. I don't even use 2, 3, 4, 5. I just use one star because I just need to know if it's a pick or not.
Yeah.
If somebody has better organization than me, or that their brain can have that capacity of 1 means this, 2 means this, 3 means this, then more power to you. You can even organize it that much more. But for me, I just need to call down, let's say in one shooting session or day, I potentially could shoot 10,000 images. That's easy because these cameras are just so fast. I mean, the R3, I don't even know, it's 30 frames per second, right?
Yep.
There's situations where you need that. And there's so many images to choose through. But like I explained earlier, shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah.
Our hit rate may only be 5% or 10%. But that's pretty darn good.
That's good.
That's very high. And when I say hit rate, I don't mean that it's a usable image or not. I mean, it's a top of the line image that we can deliver to client where they will be very happy to use it for social media, a brochure, ad, web, whatever. It's just something that we have to do day in and day out. And it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And how big's your team now, too?
Our team is 6 of us now.
Yeah.
And we all shoot on Canon cameras, and we all put everybody through the ringer in terms of knowing these cameras. The nice thing is, because of the button layout and because of the way that these cameras are made, the menus and the buttons are generally pretty much in the same area. So if you learn one camera, you can pretty much pick up any of the other cameras.
Let's take it back too. You mentioned a lot about going and traveling places, because I think it's really important that we talk about this, is the community aspect. Because again, like you don't have 1,000 cars, right? You rely on the community, right? I mean, in a sense, because again, like it might not be commercial, it might not be big brands or something like that, but really like that sense of community, I think, is what really helps to define you as well. It's like where you get to like reach out to these people.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. And the community is just so good. It is so helpful, and it really is amazing. I do have to say that we're lucky because we've gone this far because of how inclusive the community is and how willing they are to share what they have. Cars is just this thing that just brings all of these people together. I mean, we speak the same, even though if we don't speak the same language, we speak the same language. We just love the same thing and we relate to the same thing. It's like I can make best friends with most of these individuals in a matter of minutes, even if it's just somewhere. Like we came from different walks of life. It doesn't matter, where you're from or what you look like or whatever. if you're into cars in any shape or form, we can be friends and we can hit it off and we can tell a story together. It's so crazy. It doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense. Yeah.
And that's what's really cool, though. I mean, again, it's just making those connections and those bonds.
What's really cool to me is that I'm able to combine my two passions, cameras and cars and photography. It's something that makes complete sense because these things are super visual. And the way I put it is no matter what, even if you're as big of a personality as somebody like Jay Leno, or if it's me, or if it's just some bystander on the street, if it's a cool car that you think is interesting, chances are you're going to want to take a picture of it. It's almost like hard to pinpoint why you want to take a picture of it for yourself, but it's just the way it is. I mean, a lot of, like, my family always makes fun of me. They kind of say that it's almost like I'm catching Pokemon. When I see these cool cars on the street, I have to take a picture of it. I have to show everyone else that I saw this car.
Yeah.
And part of it is that, yeah, I would love to own all of these cars at one point in time, but I just want to take a picture for myself, just so I can take a piece of that car home with me. I can own it. Even though I may never be able to afford this vehicle, it's something special. It's just, that's the whole thing about photography, right? You're just creating something. But it's the same way, like I said, that's why I mentioned Jay Leno. Somebody like him, even if he can buy pretty much whatever car he wants, it's still interesting to him to own a piece of it. If he takes a picture of it, whatever, at a show, or it's just so cool what the community is about.
And it's funny that you mentioned Jay Leno, because we've done a couple of workshops there.
Yeah,
right?
so he's been so helpful to us. First of all, they shoot their entire show on Canon stuff, right? Canon Cinema, and then during the shutdown, they just used 5Ds, R5s, just a bunch of DSLR mirrorless cameras to shoot their show. But yeah, they're really, really big supporters of mine and of Canon. He even has a Pro 6100 printer at his shop where he prints out a bunch of nice pictures and wiring diagrams or whatever they need to use a printer for. But yeah, we've hosted classes there. And he doesn't open up his place just to anybody.
Yeah.
And that's what's really, really cool, being able to use this place. Because the main thing about teaching car photography for me is to have the correct subjects. It doesn't matter if you have a boring, normal method of transportation vehicle that doesn't inspire anybody. I can teach all day until I'm blue in the face, but it's not going to inspire anybody. People are going to be like, whatever. But if it's some of the best some of the best vehicles in the world that these people are able to photograph, then they're creating something that they're proud of. They're creating something that they can come away with, that they can say, oh man, I took this picture. I created this thing. And yeah, that's what's really important to me.
Yeah. And I think this is a good segue as well, too, to talk about, because you just mentioned COVID, taking photos, wanting to bring it home, and large format printers. What happened with you during COVID that kind of changed everything as far as business is concerned?
The shutdown for us was really tough.
Yeah.
It's no secret that, all the racing, all the events, and all production halted. And for the first time in my life, I was thinking, man, what a waste. I was thinking, I pushed so hard all the way up until this point just for the rug to be pulled underneath me. And I just didn't know what to do. We were just sitting at home doing nothing, because what I love doing is traveling all over the world, taking pictures of cars. luckily I was already working with Canon at that time because I became a Canon Explorer of Light in 2019, winter of 2019. And Canon reached out and they asked me if I wanted to try one of their large format printers out to maybe print out some of my work and see if I can offer it for sale. And I mean, I didn't really think anything of it because I always thought it was so far away from me. It was just such a difficult task, and it was like something that was unobtainable. I thought to myself that at the time, printing is for like a print house or a large scale operation. What's somebody like me gonna do with a printer that's meant to print 24 hours a day, every day for the masses? Well, we opened up this thing and I could not believe how large it was. It came out of a pallet and it was so heavy and it was so grand. And, you know, I made a post on Instagram saying, hey, anybody want large format prints? Just almost like a half joke. And that first day, we sold $5,000 worth of prints. The first day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was thinking, oh my God, this is game changing. This is real money. And this is something that people actually want to support. And I didn't really understand it until way later on after now we've sold, I don't know, over 6,000 prints. Probably even more than that. I've lost count because now we have two printers. We have a 2100 and a 6100. I print every single day.
Yeah.
In fact, I calculated how much surface area the 2100 has printed because it actually tells you in square feet. And it's printed exactly 1 acre of surface area.
Yeah.
This one printer.
Yeah.
Which is just so crazy. I've gone through so much ink and so much paper. But I didn't really understand it until somebody reached out to me during the shutdown time. And at the time, I printed out a bunch of things, and I had a bunch of my friends that were either famous racing drivers or personalities in the car industry or builders. I had my buddy Hertridge sign his vehicle. It's this beautiful Mazda RX-7 that's in drift. And I actually took the photo from my 240Z. I had the cameras. I had a 1DX Mark II, I think, mounted on my 240Z, and I took the photo at our local racetrack, printed out the photo, had him sign it, and I signed it, and then I put it on my website, sold it for $100, shipped. I think we printed, I don't know, 50 of them. And then this individual bought it, and he sent me this note that really hit home. He said, this was so worth it to me. I spent $100 on this thing, but I wake up every single morning, and it's the first thing I see, and it gives me so much inspiration because it gives them something. It gives this individual like a goal. Like one day he wants to be able to build something like that. And it gives him inspiration, you know, and it's something that means so much to him because it's something that went through my hands that I actually created. You know, we went out of our way to go to the racetrack and create this image. And then I printed it myself, signed it, packed it myself, you know, had Hurt sign it. It's just something that is worth, to him at least, more than $100, and it was totally worth it for him. That's what makes me feel good, you know, because it's not just about making money. It's about giving these individuals something that they actually like and they care about.
Right.
And yeah, it's super cool. I just love it. It makes me so happy to do it, and it's something that I do every single day. I don't let anyone else touch my printers. I'm the only one that's allowed to touch the printers because in the end of the day, I'm just selling pieces of paper, but man, so much goes into making these pieces of papers,
absolutely.
you know, because of all the hardship, the blood, sweat, and tears that go into making the images to begin with, the actual suffering, and of course, just the foresight and just the work that I put into making sure that these are perfect. We design our own packaging so I can stand on it, and it's somewhat water resistant too, so it can survive all over the world. It's something that I just care about so much, and that's why I'm the only one that does it, and I spend a lot of time on each one. So yeah, it's really cool to me. It's for the first time, whoever wants to follow us or whoever is a fan of me or whatever, the people that I'm photographing, they can own a piece of it.
Yeah.
For
I think
themselves.
that's what resonates.
And it's special. Yeah.
It really resonates with them.
So that's why I've been trying to convince a lot of the other explorers of light, like Atiba, Zach Noel. Especially,
I'm
calling them out for doing the same thing. They need to do the same thing because, for example, with surf photography, there's so many surfers that are legendary that may not even be getting in the water anymore, or at that level, or competing at that level, but they still inspired so many people.
Yeah,
I'm sure so many people all over the world would love a piece of art signed by the photographer, Zach Noel, and also the surfer. And same thing with Atiba. Atiba, he's photographed so many legendary skaters that are still around that may not be skating at that level or may not be competing, but they evoked so much emotion to all their followers. They would love to own a piece of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the coolest thing. It's crazy. I seriously never thought it would get to this point where I can actually do it myself. But it's about the quality, the format, how large it is. A lot of people ask me, why is it that you don't print smaller? Well, you can go to any inkjet printer and print a small photo. But if you want something that's 6 feet long or 5 feet wide by 10 feet, that's something I can do.
Yeah.
And it's so detailed, you can literally go up to it 3 inches away from this piece of paper. And because of the way that we shoot, I modify the way I shoot for printing now, especially when I know this is going to be a print.
Yeah.
This is going to be something where I have to stitch together to use maximum resolution, or I have to use my R5 for maximum resolution. So it's pixel for pixel sharp. When you get that close to it, it's that sharp. That's what's important to me. It doesn't really matter to me that it's big. It just needs to be of the highest quality, and it needs to last. And recently I traveled to Thailand, and I went to a shop for the first time ever where I saw my work hung up on their wall. And I was like, wow, I can't believe it. It's so cool to see my work in the wild. And it's all stuff that I signed, and yeah, it's the best. It's so much fun.
That's a nice feeling, huh?
Yeah. And I also like to include a lot of added value. I like to give pins. I like to give lanyards, keychains, stickers. I also use the Canon selfie printers, like either the 1300 or the 900, whatever we're using. And sometimes I run 2 of them at a time. I print out a lot of postcards.
Yeah.
And it's so cheap. It's like 25 to 30 cents each for these postcards.
Mm-hmm.
And they mean so much to the individuals that receive them because it's just added value, and it's my favorite pictures.
Yeah.
They don't choose, I choose. Mm-hmm. And I print out a bunch of these postcards, and I just slip them into the packaging, and I don't know, it's just something special from me, it's something from my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I got your sticker on your peeking Larry on my Pelican.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's why every time I look at it, I love that sticker as well too. So yeah. It's a crack up. I know when you first gave it out, I was like, oh, these are so cool.
Yeah. It's the one-on-one interaction for me with people when I meet them at racetracks or events or car shows, very important. The most important. Because it may be the only and last time I ever meet this individual.
Sure.
And they go out of their way to watch my stuff. They go out of their way to comment, like, subscribe, look at my Instagram, follow my stuff, have good conversations. And I may never see them ever again. And I just try my absolute best to make that interaction as pleasant as possible. And if it's something where I can just give them a sticker or give them some advice, it means a lot for sure.
You said to me a long time ago, just being here is not enough. I need to experience it in my own way.
Yeah, that's a really good. That's a really good point, and that really comes down to the whole thing about pretty much every car and every event has been photographed by somebody else. There's some exceptions, but if you look up whatever it is, 24 Hour Le Mans, Pikes Peak, there's millions of photos and so many hours of content of all of it. But I need to do it myself. I have to do it.
Yeah.
You know, not to say that the other stuff is bad. It's just I want my own take on it. You know, and that's also why it's important for me to travel to all these places to tell the stories of these individuals, because a lot of these times when we show up to somebody's shop for the first time and they don't speak English and they're doing their thing on this car and they're a craftsman in their own right, they're like, why did you come here? Where did you come from? You came from Los Angeles? What? To come here? Why? This place is dirty. Or this is not interesting. And I look at them and I look at their hands and I look at all the scars that they have from working on these cars or making this thing that's metal out of their bare hands. And I think you have no idea how cool this is, and you have no idea that you are a trendsetter. You have no idea what you're doing is what we only strive to become. You know, it's incredible what you're doing, and that's why we're here, and that's why I want to tell your story.
And is that something that you strive for?
Yeah.
Right.
I love that because I don't know. It just if it inspires people, to continue this passion that we love, then I'm all for it. Because now more than ever, car culture is so big. It's just so big. Because I watched it grow from when I first started 20 years ago. You couldn't get a couple car nerds together if you tried. You know, back then there was no social media. There was just like forums where you would go to maybe meet up with a couple people. It's like if you got 10 cars together, it was like, oh my God. Now, especially, no matter where you are, if you're in a major city, there's so many car events, you can't go to all of them.
Yeah.
In Los Angeles, I feel like in one weekend, it's like 5-6 events per day. And even during the week too. If I wanted to just stay in LA and not travel and go to all the car events here, there's just so many to go to. It's too many. And it's wonderful.
Yeah. So what are you thinking again? I mean, you kind of taking the 20-year back approach. What do you see yourself doing then, in the next 5-10 years? I
think I'll continue this path about storytelling. I definitely want to direct more. I want to do projects where I can hand the camera off, but still have people shoot and create amazing content. It's something we've been doing a lot of recently. We helped Nissan launch their Nismo Z last year, and it felt so good to direct because it's still my guys shooting and it's still my vision, but the end product is something that we all helped create. And as much as I would love to do it all myself, and I don't want to give up that control, I realize that it's the only logical step to create greater and grander things. There's that. And I realize that I'm shooting less and less and less every single year, but I'm doing so many more projects. I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it goes. I'm never going to not shoot. I'm always going to shoot, especially the staple events and staple things that are very important to me. But I probably won't be doing as much grinding, shooting events and cars that I don't absolutely want to pour my heart into, there's still so many things. It's pretty much every single weekend where I still want to pick up a camera and push to do my absolute best and show the beauty and show the grandness of whatever I'm photographing.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Larry, you got all these exciting things that are happening in the world. Where can people follow you at?
I'm on most of the social media platforms. You can follow me on Instagram for my day-to-day stuff. Just search Larry Chen. If you want to follow my personal YouTube channel, that's where we pretty much put most of the stuff that we shoot and how we're shooting it. That's the Larry Chen YouTube channel. If you want to see our higher production value shows that we put a lot of effort into, that's going to be on the Haggerty YouTube channel. We seriously take about 2 weeks per episode to edit because it needs to be perfect. I mean, it is the best we can do to tell these stories. In terms of visual, it's a mix of stills and it's my personal take and voiceover, and it's just something that we really care about. It's something that we're doing a lot of now. You can also find me on my website if you want all free 4K wallpapers or whatever you want to do with them. It's larrychenphoto.com. I really, really love showing people my work in the highest resolution. It's probably even more than 5K now, but unwatermarked. Just
have fun
enjoy
with
it. Yeah,
right?
just enjoy it. Because that's what I liked when I first started. I wanted to see other people's work, and it was really hard to find really good high resolution pictures. So I really want to just spread the love of these things that I'm photographing. So that's why I just throw it out there in the world. If you want to print, you can go to larrychenprints.com, and all the prints that I have available are on there. I do custom prints, but it just takes a lot longer because I have to dig out the photos. But I just wanted to thank you. I want to thank the rest of the Canon team. And it's interesting, we're recording this in this studio in this building in Southern California. This is where it all started with me for Canon. I don't actually know what year. I think it was 2017.
I think, yeah.
I think it was 2017 when I first did a talk here in the theater. And then since then, it's pretty much snowballed. Just the education portion of what I'm doing. I never taught car photography or anything in my life. But working with Canon, using these tools and spreading the love for cars, but mostly photography, has been incredible.
Yeah, and we're always glad to have you here as well too. So thank you, right? And maybe one day we'll get back to doing workshops again because there was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But until that time, it was fun having you here, Larry, and thanks for telling your story and sharing with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having us, Larry. The
You're
bloopers.
Welcome. You're welcome.